Welcome to HMG Live, a production of HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you to reimagine the business and reinvent the future of work. Home to the HMG Strategy Global Technology Executives Who Matter Awards, and also offering the HMG Marketplace, a fast, easy, safe, and efficient way to connect with the right vendors for your technology needs.
My own personal experience with connections actually does start with HMG, where I would attend HMG events for the networking opportunities, the opportunity to learn from my peers. It's one of the ways that I became an effective CIO at KLA Tencor. And it was actually at an HMG event in 2010 that I got connected to the recruiters at Facebook through a CIO here. These types of events and functions are really important, both for people to develop themselves, but also for us to just make our profession more effective, because we can cross-pollinate ideas and help each other innovate by learning from each other's mistakes and each other's successes. And I think HMG probably does this better than anybody.
And now, a warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 2020 Florida CIO Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. I think we have an amazing another world-class summit for you here today. Stay dialed in and tuned in right to the very end of the program, where we're having the HMG Top 2020 Tech Execs That Matter Recognition Awards program. Big shout out to Ring Central. Today we're powered by Ring Central. Work together from anywhere. Bring employees and customers together with the world's #1 business communications platform. Ring Central supports any mode, any device, anywhere. It's easy to use, easy to buy, and easy to manage. Secure, reliable, and open. Over 400,000 customers and partners globally trust Ring Central in their search for the world's easiest meeting platform. And we're also powered by Rubrik. Rubrik delivers a single platform to manage and protect data in the cloud, at the edge, and on-premise. Enterprise choose Rubrik Cloud Data Management Software to simplify backup and recovery, accelerate cloud adoption, and enable automation at scale. As organizations of all sizes adopt cloud-first policies, they rely on Rubrik's Polaris SaaS platform to unify data for security, governance, and compliance. Rubrik's a fascinating company as well. And then again, big shout out to Celonis, Rubrik, and Ring Central. Let's get going. Let's move on. We couldn't do what we do around the country, and specifically in the Florida state of Florida, without the support of the South Florida Sim Chapter, Tampa Bay Sim Chapter, and the Central Florida Sim Chapter. They've all been fantastic partners, a new relationship that we've been working on and building in the past year. A big shout out to each of the chapter, the board members, and the members within each of the 3 chapters. It's been a great partnership so far. Really looking forward to today and into 2021. Next up, we have Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor is the CEO of Summitt International. Mark, great to see you today.
Hey, great to see you too, Hunter. Looks like a great agenda for the day, and our chapters in Florida, thrilled to be partnered with you. And thanks for all the investment you keep making in the Florida market. It's a great reciprocal relationship there, Hunter. And again, thankful for all the investment that you're making and for the partnership.
SIM's an amazing organization, some 5,000 members strong, 40 chapters across North America. Anything else, Mark?
Hey, we're just looking forward to a good 21. I think everyone's looking forward to seeing as things release from the pandemic as we get into Q1 and Q2. I think we're looking forward to a great year.
Great. Good to see you again, Mark. We'll talk soon.
You too. Talk soon.
Bye now. So help us refine the marketplace. The HMG marketplace is where you can find top tier A1 partners. What are your organization's specifically technology needs now? If you could simply populate the form and hit submit, that would be fantastic. And as I mentioned, we're going to run a little video here regarding the top 2020 Tech Executive Awards that matter.
Later in today's program, HMG Strategy founder and CEO Hunter Muller will proudly recognize and honor global technology executives who matter. These top-tier CIOs, CISOs, and other technology executives have genuinely distinguished themselves in business transformation, digital disruption, innovation, and talent development through even the most difficult circumstances. These awards are not given lightly. They are earned. Recipients join an elite community of forward-thinking global technology executives in the HMG Strategy community. We are delighted to celebrate these exemplary leaders and their teams who have delivered unparalleled value to their organizations, their communities, and our world. Please stay with us for the award ceremony and meet the 2020 Global Technology Executives who matter.
So we'll be having that program right at the very end of today's summit. So what are your top priorities right now in your organization? It's the future of work, the future organization, the future of innovation. What is on your mind right now? If you could simply read through the pop-up questionnaire and hit submit, check off the ones that apply and hit submit, that would be awesome. Really appreciate it. Yeah, first up, we have Jeff Wazaki. Jeff's the CIO of the Mosaic Company. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the program today. Good to see you.
Hey, Hunter, good to see you as well. Appreciate the invitation to talk with the group today.
Hey, look, you're new at Mosaic, a real fascinating company. It's a Fortune 350, $9 billion mining and agricultural company. Tell us a little bit about Mosaic. Set some context in the marketplace, who you are, what you do, and who you compete with.
Sure, sounds great. So Mosaic is one of the leaders in the mining space, primarily around the phosphate and potash business. We really support those products from a mining standpoint that actually then get transported into the use of agriculture around the globe. So fairly large presence here in North America between the United States and Canada, large presence in Brazil. We also have a fairly large presence in India, China, but we actually export to hundreds of countries around the world. So exciting the business to be a part of. Mosaic actually was formed as a spinoff of Cargill about 15 years ago for context.
Hey, Jeff, we met some time ago in our industry, and I've tracked you for a while. You really have had an amazing career. What was it about the goals and the vision that they laid out for you in terms of what they want you to accomplish at Mosaic? What matters now for you in your new role, and what kind of leadership and digital transformation are you driving?
Yeah, great question. I mean, you take a new role somewhere, Hunter, it's always, what's the fit for me and the fit for them, right? You want to look at both sides of the equation. And I think that the story that was told to me by the team at Mosaic was, we have invested historically in IT, but you haven't seen IT maybe playing and reaching into the business as far as it needs to be. And really the CEO and the board have laid down a pretty aggressive plan around the digitization of the business. And that was really what drew me to Mosaic. And it was everything from what are we doing really at the mine level? And that includes things around edge computing, IoT, machine learning, data analytics, all the way through our supply chain and through our commercial environment to what am I doing with my customer? How do I interact with them? How do I maybe change the model I've got with them? In Brazil, we go directly to the farmer, which is a really interesting model. From the mine to the farmer, that's a pretty big stretch. We're here in North America, we've got more of a distributor-based model. But even my experience in that space, even though not directly related to mining, I've had 10, 15 years of my business background has been in that distribution space. So I was able to quickly walk in and understand kind of what's going on. But obviously, starting new in the CIO chair, I was in the office for about 2 weeks. So I actually got to meet the SLT, meet the IT team, and then everybody went home. So fortunate for me to be able to at least meet some people and get names with faces. But really the first 3 months of the job, Hunter, honestly, were all about COVID. So COVID response, how are we handling that, security, some of those sort of things. But in the midst of that, then trying to take a look at what do we do next.
So any surprises for you in the role that you can share in this forum?
Sure, I'd say, like I said, I think there was a nice level of investment in IT around systems, SAP, Massimo, Salesforce, a lot of really brand names around the IT side. But I don't think the company was leveraging the technology or the capabilities that some of these platforms have. So it caught me off guard a little bit. I was expecting maybe a little bit more maturity around use of some of the technology. I'd say the other area for me that was a big one, Hunter, and I heard it throughout, coming on board here, was the opportunity with data. We had sort of, I call it almost decision making at the mine level, where each group sort of ran independently. Well, how do you start making decisions across our ecosystem or across our environment when you're doing that? So one of the big things that we did initially coming on board here was really to stand up a data warehouse data strategy as we started looking at how we pull that information together in a much more cohesive way than they had historically. So those are probably the couple of surprises.
Hey, Jeff, one of the things that was coming up in our research more and more at HMG is this need to lead passionately, courageously, innovation, driving an innovation agenda, reimagining the customer experience and reimagining the new business models, new go-to-markets. You referenced a bunch of different technology, including data, how imperative that can be to wrap data around services which may have not been there before. When you think about what gets you most excited about the frontier of your role and new things that you're doing today and helping Mosaic innovate and modernize the whole go-to-market?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a demand that came down directly from the CEO saying, I want to be in a scenario where I've got really, true real-time visibility across our entire environment. I want to be able to understand what's going on with our customer all the way through to what's going on with the operator at the mine. That's, if you're not excited about that sort of opportunity, you're in the wrong chair. But to be able to take a look at how IT plays a role in every single strategy across Mosaic right now, I think was a big aha for me coming in. I thought we'd have some very specific things we want to do around the mine. Well, great, but you need the data and you need the connectivity in that area. If you're looking at our customer and how do we digitally market to our customer, we've got a lot of opportunity there to think differently about how do we market and communicate. So again, a lot of great digital opportunities across the board, Hunter, and honestly, one of the reasons I came to Mosaic.
When you think of our industry, taking a step back and up, and you think of tech leaders that you've really inspired you to really excel in your career, and you think of generally the tech leader today, I mean, is this perhaps the most exciting time and a time where we really need to be decisive, courageous, and lead passionately and lead decisively and help the company win? Winning really matters, doesn't it?
My conversations are all grounded in what results we're driving, Hunter, right? What are we doing from a revenue standpoint? What are we doing from a cost standpoint? What are we doing from a bottom line standpoint? And I think having sort of that conversation as an IT leader is a must. I know I've talked a little bit about technology here, but I'll tell you, almost all the projects and programs we're driving are very closely tied to the CEOs and the board's agenda around objectives we need to chase. So whether it's hundreds of millions of dollars on the bottom line, whether it's revenue opportunities in some of our growing markets, that needs to be the grounding of the conversation. But I think it's an unprecedented time for the CIO to be playing a different role. Like I said to you earlier, me being in a situation where I'm fundamental to every single strategy going on across the company is just an exciting place to be.
We were down in Florida about 9 months ago when the whole world came to an end in March. And I kind of said, we got to rethink everything going forward. I'd be curious, Jeff, when you enter in this new role, in this new charter, how do you stay open and reimagine, reinvent technology, process, and people to drive those initiatives, to drive those strategies? What's your thought process around that?
Well, I think, first we've got an open mindset, I think that's kind of permeating most companies these days, right? So even outside of I'll call it the IT house, right? All these other functions are also starting to think the same way. And I kind of call it sort of an avalanche, right? I'd say it probably started for me maybe a couple of years ago. We started to see more of that happening. And now it's kind of, purview and part of every sort of conversation that most of the company is in. I think it's really interesting in our space in particular, that you're starting to look at things like RPA that are just basically helping day-to-day operations, to things like I said, AI, machine learning sort of capabilities. I'm really excited about really the role technology has to play to drive meaningful change, but at the same point in time, getting us a seat at the meaningful table as well.
When you're new to the Florida market, and I know we introduced you to some folks down there, what do you like most about your new home in Florida, and who are the people in Florida you'd really like to meet?
Well, first of all, I can't complain about the weather, so we'll start with that, Hunter, as a starting point. Been great, but really an open market down here. Met a lot of individuals across the SIM group already. I know a couple individuals will be speaking at your conference here today. I'm excited to meet them. For me, it's just an opportunity for Mosaic to be represented well from a brand's perspective. We've got to get out and hire. We're looking at some opportunities here for whether it's everything from what do we do from a college recruiting standpoint up to experienced individuals in the market. So excited to continue to build out Tampa and this area as an attractive place. Digitally, we've got a lot of great companies here between Central Florida, South Florida, and here, and excited to use that as an opportunity to not just stand up for Mosaic, but really stand up for technology in general across Florida.
Hey Jeff, great to see you. Thanks so much for coming on the program and being supportive of the HMG model and the summit.
Yeah, appreciate the time, Hunter. Good to see you and everybody on the call. Excited for the rest of the conversations today.
Excellent. We'll follow up soon. Great to see you.
Take care.
Next up, we have David Bray. David's the inaugural director of Global GeoTech Center and Commission at the Atlantic Council. Folks, Dr. David Bray, he's a good friend of HMG and mine for some time. Buckle up and get ready. This guy will blow you away. David, what's on your mind today? Where are you, first off? Are you in DC?
I am technically, yes, in a remote location near DC, yes.
Okay, and David is one of the geniuses, truly geniuses in our world, folks. Talk to us about what's got your, what are you thinking about on a global level in terms of innovation, on a global level in terms of technology, and what really matters for the enterprise CIO, CTO, and CISO?
Right, well, and I think it really builds on a conversation we just heard from Jeff in terms of, no longer is it a case that IT is seen as a support function to the enterprise. IT is how the enterprise operates. And what COVID-19 did is it moved us forward anywhere between 5 to maybe even 7 or 8 years into the future in terms of the impacts of these technologies and how we work, how we collaborate. And the question is, while it's moved us and forced us there and forced us to rethink how we operate and how we collaborate as companies and as organizations, then the question is, how is that catching up with our employees? What does it mean to be an employee, especially if you're now onboarding and you're not seeing people? How does it impact how we do the business of governance? And I mean governance, not just what governments do, but how do we collaborate with people that we may never meet, especially since we are still a species that tends to like to build trust and relationships in person? How do we build shared culture? And most importantly, if we're going into a world in which COVID-19 is here for the long haul, I mean, yes, hopefully maybe a vaccine come next year, but the question is, how well will that vaccine work? How fast will we get it to people? I would say to people, what we're experiencing, if people think that COVID-19 is going to be over by December 2021, while I hope they're right, I would say I would bet less than 40% that that's the chance. I think we're looking at this as at least a year, if not 2, to continue. And so if that's the case, how do we work together on things that might be shared outcomes, shared results, but distributed execution where you may not see people, and it may increasingly not even be people you're interacting with, but bots, chat bots, and eventually digital avatars and automated forms of interaction that may be complementing and augmenting what humans do in the workplace.
Fascinating times, right? When you think of geopolitics, I mean, how can you not, after what we've been through over the past year? It's a little, it seems a little crazy, a little off the wheels, but how do you think it's impacting big tech and data and privacy and security?
Yes, so you hit the nail on the head. This has been a banner year for what we call geotech. And by geotech, we don't mean geospatial technologies. We mean how geopolitics impacts technology and vice versa. And before the pandemic, it was increasingly coming the case that data and technology were having impacts on geopolitics. For example, what other nation states might do to each other when it comes to cyber-related attacks and things like that. But what COVID-19 did is it showed that the tech surrounding how to respond to the pandemic, the tech that gets organizations and economies back to work, that itself has geopolitical impacts. And then on top of it, obviously, we've been having the controversies involving Huawei. Should you use or not use Huawei gear? My own recommendation, I would not, but that's my own recommendation. But then we've also seen TikTok and WeChat come to the foray as well. And all indications are this is going to accelerate, that things that are done by companies and organizations technologically will have geopolitical impacts. And the question for you as an organization, as a company, especially if you do business globally, is how not to get caught in the crosshairs of what is increasingly becoming what might be either a return to protectionism or mercantilism. We know that Europe is gearing up to put forward additional requirements beyond just general data protection regulation, GDPR, to think about how AI can be used, not just in Europe, but how you use AI, and more specifically the subset machine learning, on individuals who may identify from Europe. And so again, if you're a company that either does business in Europe or does business with people who may hail from Europe, that's going to be something that you need to start tracking as a CIO. What are going to be the impacts on that? At the same time, we know that China and the US, obviously there's been some battles over trade. All indications are that the new incoming administration is not going to change that. They may be less visible or more nuanced in it, but they're not going to suddenly go back to the way things were in 2019. And I think that's the message for us all, which is up until now, as a CIO or CTO or CISO, you really didn't have to think too much about how geopolitics was impacting how your business did its work and how IT was implemented. What I would say is, not just because of COVID-19, but because of the increasing interconnectedness of the world and what's possible, for example, from space. And what I mean by space is we're seeing commercial satellite constellations being launched that can provide near real-time imagery every 15 minutes at 25 centimeter resolution of anywhere in the planet. And so if you're a CIO, you should be thinking about how does that change how you either monitor your supply chains, how you monitor your customers, how you monitor how you do work, your production facilities. Increasingly, you've got to be aware of the geopolitics that are impacting your business and be that voice, specifically on the data and tech side, to your leadership.
Well, David, how do you go about that? It sounds like a great idea. And I'm a big fan of you, and I believe it. How do you go about it?
Well, first is the convenings that you do with HMG. I mean, the reality is, it reminds me of the quote from Bill Joy, which says, no matter where you go, most of the people, smartest people, work for someone else. Is that the reality is that you can hire people into your company, but really we can learn best from each other. And that's what I think you do with the summits here. I would say for being aware of what's happening with geopolitics, go beyond the headlines. And this is hard because I think a lot of us are already feeling like we're experiencing information overload. And the reality is, I mean, in some respects, don't watch social media as your source of information, because if anything, it's going to pull you into the headlines that are sensational, but are not actually what's going on. I would say through what HMD does, what we do here at the Atlantic Council, find trusted sources that you can actually both either interact with virtually, as we're doing here today, or follow and actually track what they're producing more as serialized content. Because what we're seeing again is it's interesting that in the lead up to the election, neither campaign really had a data and tech agenda. And so we're going in now to a Biden administration that really has not specifically discussed their tech agenda for what 2021 onwards will have for the United States, let alone what we're going to be seeing in the world. But we do know these things are going to come to the forefront. They're going to be first focusing on how quickly can they get people back to work and how technology can be enabling it. Then they're going to probably be thinking about, well, how do we actually deal with the fact that there are looming cybersecurity challenges with China, but not just with China, but with other actors. And it is increasingly becoming the case that we've seen ransomware starting to hit not just large Fortune 500 companies, but we're seeing it hit, unfortunately, it's now hitting small schools, small businesses. It's either locking up people's data to extort ransoms or even worse, destroy data. And this is really part of a broader trend that I tell people, which is the good news is technology is getting democratized. The bad news is technology is getting democratized, which means that anybody can now do things that were only possible to, say, the CIA and the KGB 30 or 40 years ago. That creates challenges for how you deal with it from a security standpoint, but also how do you involve your public. Lastly, in terms of CIOs and CISOs trying to figure out how they stay abreast of this, I would highly recommend maybe forming a small advisory group of people that are scanning the space for your organization as itself. And it can be people that are scanning for global trends, both in terms of technology, but the impacts that are going to be happening in terms of governance and the public perceptions of them as well.
Great ideas. What are the trends that are out there right now, the top 3, 4, 5 that we should be looking at that may not be on the CIO's radar screen?
Sure. On a positive note, what, again, COVID-19 has done is it has accelerated investments in both computer vision and automation. And what do I mean by that? Well, there is now what people call AI process control, where you can basically combine automation with computer vision, and the machine will watch what either you, your humans, or your machines do. And you essentially show it enough runs, and you've taught the machine, this is what a normal manufacturing process looks like, or this is what a normal procedure looks like. And then after you've taught the machine can actually say, I've been monitoring, and all of a sudden, it looks like something's out of kilter. Maybe someone did something wrong, maybe the machine did something wrong, maybe it's a software or hardware issue, or maybe in fact, someone's trying to inject something to your machine to have it do something that it shouldn't. But this allows CIOs and organizations to basically do distributed production or distributed services, yet the appearance of centralized quality control. And that's really exciting and really an interesting forward trend. Also, you're seeing VCs, again, they're looking at companies to invest in that are showing this forward-leaning edge towards computer vision and AI. On a challenging news note, I'm hearing a lot from CISOs as well as from CIOs that said 18, 24 months ago, their job on cybersecurity was 90% focusing on securing the hardware and the software, maybe 10% dealing with misinformation. Now I'm hearing a lot of them, especially what we've seen that's happening with the pandemic and the fact that people are working remotely. It's almost a 80, if not 90% dealing with misinformation, disinformation, 10 to 20% at best dealing with cybersecurity. Not that that's not important, it's just that misinformation has overwhelmed organizations. And my questions for CIOs are, well, who in your organization deals when, if a misinformation attack happens to your organization? What if someone starts spreading information to intentionally damage your company's reputation, or to intentionally, having bought your stock, they're now shorting it, they're gonna make a profit off the misinformation they gave to your company? Is that your job? Is that legal's job? Is it marketing's job? And what is your playbook to deal with misinformation, disinformation? Because we know there's increasingly bots, there's increasingly algorithms, it's increasingly becoming easy to spread things that are not true about your organization, and by the time you respond, it's already out the door.
Hey, David, it's always great to see you. I always learn something every time I hear from you. Really appreciate your engagement and support. I know we have a bunch more planned into 2021, including Sim Connect coming up in December with Sim International. Thanks so much, David. Great to see you.
Thank you, Hunter, as always. And to everyone, be bold, be brave, and be benevolent. Thank you.
And next up, we have Trevor Schulze, the Senior Vice President, CIO of Ring Central. Trevor, great to see you.
Hey, Hunter, great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, so the title of this fireside chat is Change to Win, and the next phase is Good to Go. What is that all about?
Well, I think there's a lot of discussion going on right now about what's next. I think over the last couple quarters, people have been talking about now and the change that they have to enact now. And I'm more interested in where we have to go next, what the business is asking for us, and what a lot of people are calling new normal, next normal, give it a name.
Sure, makes sense, a lot of sense. You often talk about the systems of experience. You need to define what that means, and why is that relevant and importance to the enterprise CIO and tech leader?
So I think this is a new category in my mind. I think everyone is searching for what matters and how they affect businesses going forward. And I think everyone has sort of heard the systems of record, they've heard systems of engagement, and now I'm suggesting a new category called systems of experience. This is a new and next evolution of those concepts. And I think it's important for digital leaders to grasp this trend. And the way I've been looking at this and the way I've been speaking to other digital leaders is, we're in this service economy. And the service economy up to this point has been analog, and now it's digital. People have been giving it a name, digital transformation and whatnot. And this whole environment we're in has accelerated these systems of experience. And these are digital platforms that deliver mass service at scale. And, if you give it some words, what defines a systems of experience? It's something that's hyper individualized, it's immersive, it's communal, it's enduring. You hear people use concepts like omni-channel, but most important is that it's simple and intelligent. And it's driving, I think, a lot of the mega trends that are out there right now.
When you think of it, the platform wins, right? The ecosystem wins. And you think of the companies that really master that, they're just dominating in their categories, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can look at examples of what I'm categorizing as systems experience. Think of like how healthcare is changing, telehealth. Think about how people who are looking at working out differently, like Peloton, people who are looking for new shopping experiences, things like Stitch Fix and Taylor. You can go category after category, and what you're seeing are digital leaders who are grasping the systems of experience concept and they're applying it to revenue, they're applying it to customer experience, they're applying it to employee experience. And we at RingCentral believe that this huge shift around business communications is also a systems of experience, and it's one that's tied towards the employee.
You guys are hitting on all cylinders right now in terms of revenue, customer experience, and employee experience. Talk to us a little bit more about what are you seeing?
So I think all three tie. When I'm out talking to executives in terms of what is going on, where are they going, what matters, first and foremost, people are talking about the employee. How we have people who are going to be able to work from anywhere. How are we going to attract talent in this new blended, flexible, hybrid work model? So if you're hiring the best, you have the talent that's looking for this flexibility, you create this seamless employee experience. People who can work from anywhere, have digital assets like RingCentral and others help enable them. And then if you have an employee that's engaged and it has this seamless environment to collaborate with anyone, anywhere, anytime, it also helps with your customer experience. Like that engaged employee now can engage in the customer, who, by the way, the customers are demanding an experience with a brand. And so, all those things I talked about earlier drive that new customer experience. And then, so you've got the employees driving the customer, and then ultimately it drives revenue. I mean, the companies that are going to win in the normal that's ahead of us are the ones who are truly grasping what it means to create that truly mass service experience for the employee, for the customer, which drives the brand.
Brilliant stuff, Trevor. Really great thought leadership there. Now, what kind of leadership skills does a CIO need today and into the future to drive this complete, holistic, I'll call it, ecosystem of thinking?
Yeah, I'm out there a lot talking about just, you have to tear up the playbook. You have to think differently. Everyone keeps saying that, but I truly think that what's happened over the last 6 months has driven a hyper growth, hyper acceleration of what people are looking for out of companies. Things that seemed impossible to get done in a year happened overnight. And so you have to be a leader that's continuously learning. You have to be a leader that's willing to look at innovation differently. And you have to really understand what your employees need, what your customers need. You have to stop thinking about personas, and you have to stop thinking about, classic thinking here. I truly believe the companies that win are already moving, and it takes digital leaders to actually, lean into this new environment.
I totally agree with you on this piece. I think CIO and the tech leader needs to lead differently, think differently, lead courageously, lead authentically, lead passionately, and really rewrite the rules on and how the CIO, the tech leader, engages with the board, the C-suite, the line of business. What other kind of a piece of advice would you give us, a tech leader now today, trying to think completely different and rethinking their leadership style?
Oh yeah, I love this question, Hunter. I just want to turn this on its head. People have been talking about IT business alignment, IT business integration, IT getting on the same page with the business. I don't think CIOs should be, they shouldn't be focused on getting on the same page with the C-suite. And what I mean by that is that they need to rewrite the book. They need to collaborate in writing this new book about convergence of all things: technology, people, process, data. They shouldn't be trying to understand, they should be leading. And it's such a mindset shift. And if you don't have this courage to take that mindset shift, your competitors will. And we at RingCentral believe that we need to rewrite the book. We need to rewrite the what is happening in unified communications and collaboration. And that's where people are going to emerge out of this environment we're in right now as true winners, as true leaders of winning brands and winning companies.
I love the idea. What does winning really look like then in its fullest form?
Winning means that you've created a beautiful experience for your employees, that you've created an exceptional new level of experience for your customers. And those are driving new revenue streams, new ideas. I mean, people are coming to brands now and saying, I want to connect and I want it to be intelligent. I want it to know who I am. I don't want to have to tell it that. Our employees are saying that, our customers are saying that. And this is a whole brand new way of thinking. So that's what I go back to, systems of experience. This isn't about creating fancy new workflow. This isn't about creating, buying the right thing. This is about thinking differently about where things are going in the coming years. And I challenge everyone to start thinking about, it doesn't matter if you're in healthcare, it doesn't matter if you're in manufacturing, every single vertical, every single digital leader in every vertical has to be thinking about systems of experience. And I'm super thrilled about this concept, and it's really catching steam.
So systems of experience, at the end of the day, it comes down to people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like if I engage and want to buy something, I want it to know me. I want it to actually, help me and guide me, and stop having me be the one to have to search for it, because there's unlimited things that can happen in this environment. And I think that this is just a category that's going to emerge, regardless if I give it a name or not. Digital leaders have to change their thinking. They have to really push themselves to go after this type of concept. This is the core of how people are driving their businesses, and this is where the winners are going to emerge.
Let's talk a little bit about what's uniquely different about RingCentral.
I'm just so blessed. I work at a company where I am in the future. People want to see business communications get simpler. They want it to be seamless. They want it to be reliable. They don't want to have to think about it anymore. They don't want to have to flip between a bunch of different apps, and they want to work from anywhere. It's got to be, it works from anywhere on any mode that if I choose. We at RingCentral believe that all of this needs to come together, and we're living in the future right now.
That truly is unique. And you must be working with all sorts of companies across industry and all sizes, right?
All sizes. I mean, we work from the small office, home office, all the way up to the Fortune 50. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're a company that was born in the phone, and we've moved into video this year. Fortunately, with everything going on, that played out well. And messaging. Most people don't know that we also have the messaging platform. So, and it all works in one app. I mean, I can flip between all three and not have to change a screen. And I know that seems like, okay, does that make sense? We're the only people who do it. And by the way, we're open. We have an open platform that allows you to integrate your current workflow into our platform. We are not a walled garden. We believe that the communications and workflow of a company should be everywhere. But we also believe that a tight integration into a platform like ours just makes the employee experience better.
Hey, Trevor, I understand people can learn more about RingCentral in the HMG marketplace.
Yeah, absolutely. Take a look at the marketplace. I love what you've built there, Hunter. RingCentral's there, easy to find us.
Great to see you, Trevor. Talk soon.
Absolutely, Hunter. Always a pleasure, man. Great to see you.
Thanks now. Fascinating thing about Trevor Schulze. Trevor has been with RingCentral about going on 2 years now. Former global CIO at Micron Technology, a huge chip company, manufacturer, Fortune 50. Hey, next up we have Paul Wilner. He's the VP of IT and the CIO at Paul Corporation. Paul's going to moderate our next session. Paul, welcome to the program. Great to see you.
Hey, Hunter, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm excited to moderate this next panel. So let's get started. The topic here is envisioning future disruption and developing radical new business models. Let me read the narrative that's here to give people sort of an understanding of the big picture here. Businesses across industries were massively disrupted by the global pandemic. Going forward, CIOs and technology executives must think differently and apply a fresh mindset to creating new business strategies with the executive team in order to help their business to survive and thrive. In this session, we'll hear from leading technology execs from different industries share the steps they're taking to help accelerate their businesses in the future. So let's introduce the panel. With me, we have Jennifer Greenman, CIO of Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We have Patrick Manuel, AVP IT from Royal Caribbean Cruises, and Luis Ossorio, Director of IT from Frosch International Travel. So Jennifer, welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's start with you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a brief introduction and tell us what trends you see that have the greatest disruptive impact on business in the near and long term? And how should the rest of us respond?
Sure. Well, as for an introduction, I am a longtime Florida resident. I've been at CTCA, Cancer Treatment Centers of America, for a little over a year. Prior to that, I served as CIO at Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa. And at CTCA, for those of you who may not be familiar with our organization, we are a national network of hospitals and clinics that is exclusively focused on exceptional patient-centered cancer care. We have a long legacy of a intense focus on the needs of our very ill and very special patient population. So in terms of trends, thinking what is most disruptive, or what both in the near term and in the long term, starting with probably the obvious statement that virtual is now our standard for communication and collaboration. I think that's certainly given to all of us, especially as evidenced by participation in this forum. We have to lean into this as technology leaders. We have to continue to promote this, to build upon some of the earlier themes of the interviews. We have to really be promoting and educating our colleagues on the importance of these trends. Our obligation is to create a digitally dexterous workforce and a customer community. And to do this, we need scalable, modernized applications that do enable an anytime, anywhere experience. It also means, as technology professionals, that we have an obligation to deliver a zero friction user experience. So an experience that is unencumbered by latency, but also secure and responsive, as I would say, the nirvana of technology solutions. I also think we as leaders have to pay attention to trends in human capital management. Now that we are in this geographically distributed business environment. I think we've all had long experience, very hopefully positive experience in working with remote teams, but now the reality is more than ever, not only can we source talent from anywhere in the country, if not the world, for very, very specialized needs that we have, but also our employees have the ability to work for anyone. And so this does, I think, pose a risk to us, to our workforce. I mean, we happen to live in my opinion, the best part of the country in Florida. So lots of people want to live here, but if they have an opportunity to work for a company in Silicon Valley or New York City that has perhaps significant reputational and in some cases compensation advantages, that does represent a real competitive threat for us in retaining talent. So I think that's something that we have to also be mindful of as CIOs. And then finally, one of the more disruptive trends in the technology side that I've been watching closely is around this rapidly growing API ecosystem. I think that does create a potential to disrupt really any of our markets by enabling business and technology interoperability from a wide variety of traditional and non-traditional players. At my organization, we are actually leaning into this trend and developing a core healthcare platform that is extensible to all stakeholders, to patients, to families, to partners, leveraging microservices with secure APIs, because we really see that in the future, we're not going to have just one system that creates that unparalleled patient experience, but really it's going to require a vast ecosystem of superior digital products and services.
Boy, that's great feedback, Jennifer. Thanks. The thing that stands out really for me is the challenge around talent, distributed talent that we all have to, really focus on. Okay, good. Patrick, welcome back. Please give us a brief introduction of yourself and give your perspective on what makes the cruise industry unique with the challenges of reinventing their post-COVID world.
Thank you. My name is Patrick Manuel. Worked at Royal Caribbean. I'm a loyal employee of 25 years. I've seen a lot of ups and downs, a lot of disruption. So we basically were in a really good place back in March. The company had a lot of very good initiatives around digital, around data, AI, everything. And then we got hit with a meteor. I mean, we literally got hit with a meteor, our industry and our company. So we really had to start to rethink, what we are going to be as an industry. We had to start to navigate our way through a lot of areas that our company had never dealt with before: CDC, medical technologies, everything else. And one thing that's very unique about the cruise industry that Other companies could send their employees to work from home. Our industry cannot function without, or most of our employees actually live on the cruise ships. And so the first thing we had to do was come up with technologies of how we can move crew members around, how we can keep them safe, how we can deal with testing. And we admitted, immediately that we needed help. So we brought in some of the best medical experts in the world, either people from ex-government agencies, either the education world, and some of the top scientists in the world, to help us tell us what would a vacation look like in the future. How can we keep our employees safe? How can we keep all of our customers safe? And then we started working down those tracks, and most of them ended up in IT. It ended up different endpoints that we had to collect information, ways that we had to collect data on our crew, testing, temperature taking, contact tracing, all these things that we had never even heard of, before in March. And we had to learn to collect this data, how to, evaluate it. And then we needed to work with agencies around the world, not just the CDC in the US, but agencies in Singapore, in Europe, and everywhere else, where IT was the conduit of information in between, how we prove, that it can be safe, to go on a vacation again. So we're ready. We're checking the boxes now. There's stuff now that is out of our control, which is the actual science and the spread of the virus in the US. But, as the vaccine comes in, ironically enough, today, the day of this call, we're sailing our first revenue cruise out of Singapore, which Singapore has the virus under control. So our procedures and protocols are working, and we can't wait to bring, everything that we put together on the IT side back to the United States.
Okay, great stuff, Patrick. I mean, that gives me a lot of confidence because I can't wait to get back on that ship myself personally.
We're waiting for you.
All right, Luis, welcome. Why don't you give us a brief introduction and then tell us how digital transformation enabled Frosch to thrive during this current disruption, and how has it prepared you, for better future disruptions, for handling future disruptions better?
Well, thank you very much. And a big thanks to Hunter. I've known Hunter for many years, and this is a great opportunity for all of us to learn from each other. I think we heard from David Bray earlier saying that there's a lot of misinformation and we need to build our trusted sources. Well, SIM, Hunter, and HMG happens to be one of the trusted sources that I listen to, pay attention, and gravitate to when I have challenges or new technology that I'm hunting for. Frosch is a global travel management company. And as you can imagine, we're deeply impacted by this crisis. Our international revenue went down 100% very quickly. And then the domestic revenue went down soon after that. We have been trickling at a very small fraction, and we're very happy that some countries are opening up. We're concerned about the new trends, but again, looking forward to jumping on Patrick's ships and going to some pretty places. And of course, Frosch is here to help all of you get your make your selections and such. So I think that I consider myself very lucky, and we're very fortunate. And I'm going to mention some keywords that will guide you through my statement. And one is Thomas Jefferson, cloud, consumption, capacity, customer improvements, and global solutions. So Thomas Jefferson, because the harder we work, the luckier we get. So we have been working very hard. We had a really good digital transformation plan, and we were well on our way executing. We moved on-premise data centers to the cloud. We happen to be in Azure, and we were about 92% complete when the crisis came. We had some slow developers that had all kinds of really valid reasons why they couldn't get there fast enough. So we had some aging infrastructure that was going to require some heavy capital investment. And when they heard that replacing failing, whether it was servers or disk drives, was an issue, then they quickly got into the program that we finished 100% very quickly. So getting our company to the cloud has been a godsend. We have been able to shift our spend to more of a consumption model. So all of that heavy capital expenditure was available for us to retool. So we have retooled not just an infrastructure, but our people. We have worked with some great partners that have educated us along the way. So all of this was to remove some really tough decisions coming up on heavy expenditures, on reliability with servers, with storage, and some pretty expensive toys. So when we were able to shift to a cloud model, then we're easily able to increase capacity with a dial and focus on spend. I think of a commercial, only pay for what you need. Well, that's what we're doing right now. So it allowed us to focus, reallocate staff, or my engineers, to customer impacting improvements. What does that mean? We had explosive growth over the past decade, and the growth was mostly acquisition of small companies. And with acquisitions, you get a collection of multiple systems. So we have many of the same, and we needed to standardize. So one of the projects that has kept me busy this year is consolidation of communication systems. So one of the sponsors here, RingCentral, happens to be one of my vendors. And so we have looked around the globe and went with a global solution for a VoIP communication system that allowed us to build virtual call centers. This helped us in many ways because quickly with the lockdown and pandemic lockdown came restrictions, both on commuting and also gathering. So call centers was a place where you had a lot of people. Well, now we have a virtual call center. The agents can work from home, and there's no danger of commute or contagion with other folks. They stay within their family units, and it has been wonderful. What has also done is that we have enabled a number of dashboards that are able to provide information to our managers and quickly right-size teams, whether it is bringing additional agents or being able to shift workloads towards different functions. So having that visibility has made a huge impact and difference in our service levels. One of the things that we are known for is the analytics that we bring our customers. So CFOs have smart reports with levers that can dial up and down different services for their employees. So we have a number of corporate customers that have executives traveling around the world. Now, right now, we're all in lockdown, but having those reporting abilities is something that has put us apart. Now, because we have been able to shift cash allocations towards improving our technology, we have been able to not just survive, but thrive. There are a number of smaller companies that weren't so lucky, and we're able to pick up customers from them, whether it is making a new affiliate or just acquisitions. So during this lockdown, we have done a number of acquisitions, and we have improved on our standardization model because acquisitions bring multiple systems. And that's where my story really shines, is that we have been able to not just survive, but thrive during this lockdown. And we are looking forward to coming out and really going beautiful places or wonderful ships. And I can't wait to see what's coming in the near future.
Thanks, Louis. It sounds like Patrick, you guys are primed and ready for for people to begin to ramp up their travel again. So that's great to hear. Jennifer, I want to come back to you because Patrick talked about high touch, environment, and tell us how digital business models transform industries that are high touch and deeply personal, like healthcare. And then will these organizations ever be fully digital, do you think?
Yeah, so I think we saw this transformation occur quite vividly at the onset of the pandemic earlier this year across healthcare with many similar experiences, in that we had to almost overnight shift from what was traditionally a bricks and mortar care delivery model to telehealth. And as many experts have rightly noted, we as an industry have achieved at least 5 years or more of innovation in a matter of weeks in response to this pandemic. And I would also add to that this capability to deliver care virtually has no doubt saved many lives and allowed patients to continue to receive care in a safe and high quality manner throughout this very difficult year. For example, at CTCA, we were able to convert approximately 25% of all of our appointments to telehealth during that first month of the pandemic. So went from a very small number per day or per week to having, I think we had something like 10,000 in the first month scheduled. And we continue to serve even as the pandemic has started, or at least before, as it started to, care restrictions started to subside, we still continue to serve approximately 7 to 8% of our appointments through this channel. I think that we, philosophically, we will continue to experience rapid growth in digital enablement in healthcare because this is what our consumers demand. They want convenient, personalized care that is tailored to their preferences. And while I would say that a digital experience will never fully replace the power of a clinician's caring words or the human touch that clinicians can deliver, but what it can do is it can elevate the patient's care journey and increase their level of engagement with our healthcare organizations, which is really going to lead to better outcomes for all. As one additional point I would make is that all of these interactions, they also create data as a byproduct, and so that is essential for us to become a learning healthcare system, so we can improve the diagnosis and the treatment of disease, and also how we can deliver care most effectively and most efficiently to the healthcare delivery system. So this is really a reinforcing feedback loop for knowledge and insights in healthcare.
Really great point, Jennifer. In fact, I felt like I did one of those telesessions myself, and it was much more focused than being shuffled around in the center. But it doesn't take away the personal touch that's required. Right. Patrick, back to you. You talked about the pace of change in terms of the COVID medical knowledge and emerging healthcare technologies, including the vaccine. How do you plan to navigate what is really needed short-term and long-term for your industry?
It's been an interesting ride because, all of us being IT professionals, we kind of know the good guys, the bad guys, where they lie in a quadrant, who we've done business with. And we really had to open ourselves up to an area that we were not that familiar with, which was a lot of new technologies around temperature taking, contact tracing, and how you manage the health of people during, the crisis. So, also being a company that was also, not really generating any revenue, we had to be very careful of what types of technologies we researched, what we thought was real, what we thought was smoke and mirrors and everything else. And at the same time, we were learning more about the virus, month after month, and things were changing, and we were getting different guidance from the CDC. So in the very beginning, it was all about cleaning services and, how we could provide sanitation information to making sure everything was done on the ship, to then changing, into a world of temperature taking, which it was very important. How quickly can we do temperature taking? Then evolving into, it's really ended up into the world of testing and vaccine. So, as we've gone through that whole journey, we've had to stop and start many different times and try to, navigate we're a vacation company. We want to show you a good meal, some sun and a good time. We really didn't. And now we've built, enhanced our entire medical systems on board. We now have full-blown medical record systems, where we've expanded our hospitals on board to include, a lot of equipment that you would see in clinics shoreside, and everything. So it's been, as Jennifer said, it's moving really quick, and and we're having to keep up on the technology side. And so we had to swing a little bit of focus. And the good thing is we have smart people, and whether it's working on, a data project, or now swinging and working on a medical project or whatever, we really reinvented a lot of people in IT to focus on very different needs that the company had and had to, deal with very, very quickly. All of us became a lot more medical experts than we ever thought, not just on the technology, but also the terminology and everything else. And so it was very interesting to see the parallels between medical technologies and IT technologies, and how quickly they evolve, and how a lot of times something's a hypothesis in the beginning, and you got to be able to fail fast and turn, and move in a different direction, to figure out if it's something that works. So, and I'm not saying do that actually in a real hospital while you're testing it and everything else. So it has been interesting, and I think that the cruise industry going forward, because of what we've had to do, is going to be the safest, and one of the most relaxing and one of the best vacations you can possibly take, because we can control that environment, and we took the time to actually learn the medical technologies and integrate them into the vacation.
Well, thanks, Patrick. It'll be interesting to see how this all pans out as we go forward. One last question, Luis. Let me go back to you. And on the topic of future disruption, when you think about your customers, what will Frosch customers need going forward?
Thank you. I think Frosch customers, more than anything else, need a helping hand. They need a trusted partner. So that's one of the things that we have been busy doing. We have been building additional information repositories. And so I'm going to put in a link to give you a sample of what we're doing with our customers. We have put together a repository of rebooking policies. When the lockdown happened, we had plans. I had some vacation plans that I had to postpone to next year. So what are those policies? Each one of the companies, for instance, Royal Caribbean has some very specific requirements, and we want our customers to make the best of what their selections are and will be. There are a number of concerns and worries about health and safety. We have accumulated links to the most trusted sources for health and safety. There are a number of restrictions from different countries, states, and cities. We have a collection of those links. So that is, it goes right along with the keynote speakers. David Bray talked about trusted sources, a lot of misinformation. When I come to HMG, I come to listen to Hunter and all his friends. We want to be an additional resource and a trusted source for information. So that's, and I think I want to be respectful of Hunter's time. I'm out of time, but that's one of the things that I always like to come and bring goodies with me. So I wanted to drop this little link that is free for all to see with information on trusted resources. And I also want to mention one of the books that makes me think of this pandemic and how are we going to come out stronger and smarter. Anti-Fragile is a collection of multiple books. And this is a great author because he talks about a lot of random, the nature of random and how you can learn from it. So my two little nuggets of wisdom, thank you very much. It's been wonderful, and thank you for all the learning I'm getting from you.
Well, thank you, Luis, and thank you, team. One final takeaway here for me is that, it's important that we drive customer intimacy, I think, across all the panelists here, and really gain customer trust, right, going forward if our companies are going to be successful. So, Hunter, back to you.
Paul, hey, great job. Jennifer, always good to see you. Luis, thanks so much. Patrick, great to have you on the program. Again, Paul, awesome job. Super. Hey, next up, we have Marcus Session. Marcus, everyone knows and loves Marcus down in Tampa, in Florida. Marcus is the VP of IT at Tampa International Airport, as well as the president of the Tampa Bay chapter. Marcus?
Good morning, Hunter. How you doing?
Great. Good to see you.
All right. So it looks like we have a great panel here. The topic is leveraging AI to unlock operational efficiency. And so basically, cost-focused business and technology executives are looking for more efficient ways to run their businesses, like we all are, right? In this discussion, we're going to share real-world examples of how artificial intelligence and automation capabilities are enabling faster, more intelligent operations to strengthen your bottom line. Because that's imperative in these times. We need to find time to optimize, as has been discussed. COVID-19 has had a big impact on a lot of industries. So we're at a point now where we need to find cost-effective ways to move the business forward, but not stop progress. So for that today, I have three great panelists. Simon Stelzel, Director of Solution Engineering at Solanas. JC Ramey, President of Tech-Enabled Services at ResultsCX. And Matthew Peters, CTO of CAI. See those three faces on there. So we're going to jump right in, obviously. We don't have a ton of time, so we're going to jump right in. So I'm going to start with you, Simon. So if you could give a little introduction of yourself, obviously, and answer this question for me. How do you think the pandemic has accelerated the business need for operational excellence and automation?
Oh, thank you, Marcus, and happy to be on the panel here. So my name is Simon Stelzel. I'm Director of Solution Engineering for Solanas. I'm based out of Manhattan, which has been hit by the pandemic pretty hard. And what we do at Solanas is we help businesses to transform their operations and to drive operational excellence. And how we do that is we have a software that is based on process mining. So we take in all the system data that you have in your ERPs and your CRM systems. And we help businesses to then understand the processes that are running within those systems end to end. And what we've seen during the pandemic is, especially in the beginning in March, I think I have not been as busy any time before, because our customers reached out to us and they were saying we have a lot of stress that is put on our supply chain, especially in the consumer goods industries, companies like beverage manufacturers, companies that do toilet papers and so on. They reached out to us and they were saying, you have all the data in your software. Can you help us to get some insights into where our operations are having gaps right now? And can you help us to mitigate those gaps so we can serve our customers and deliver our goods on time? So I think that's where we saw that a lot of companies were put under stress, and that was leading to they need to focus on operational excellence, because otherwise they would not have been able to kind of run their business during the pandemic where they have high demands in their business and in their industry.
All right, thank you for that. And that's, that's the key to it, right? You have a ton of data in your business. What do you do with it? How do you operationalize it? How do you provide value and do it in an efficient way? Discussions over data lakes and data warehouses, and there'll be data ponds next, right? We love euphemisms. Those things have always dominated the conversation. AI can shortcut that whole thing and help us to get forward. So thank you for that. So next we're going to go to JC. So JC, a question for you is, who are the biggest benefactors of AI today?
Sure. And just a quick intro. So thank you, Marcus. Thanks everyone for having me. First time sharing our story with you all. And I had the fortune to attend the event that happened just before the pandemic, so I consider myself lucky. And hopefully next time we get to do this in person. But so I'm JC Ramey, as Marcus said, President of Tech-Enabled Services at ResultsCX. I am the former founder and CEO of a company called DeviceBits that was acquired by Results. So DeviceBits is a software platform that improves customer experience, right? So the whole idea of taking what happens in the call center and enabling customers to serve themselves, right? And so when you talk about, the pandemic, right, all of a sudden Results, who runs call centers, whole countries were shutting down, right? So we're well prepared for things like, a fire or an earthquake or a typhoon in a particular geography. But then all of a sudden, this became a worldwide issue, right? And so we had centers that went from tens of thousands of agents able to assist customers to having no agents there. So we've played a pretty instrumental role, I believe, in helping ResultsCX through this with our platform. And prior to that, helping customers really shape what they're calling the future of CX for their business. So, specifically, who are the benefactors? I mean, I think the biggest benefactors are the customers, right? I think the customer has changed, right? The customer is outpacing the corporation is what I say a lot. And that is, corporations are spending a lot of investment to get to a positive CX, but are they keeping pace, right? Are they really where the customer wants to be served? That could be, channel issues, right? I want to deal with you on WhatsApp. I definitely don't want to pick up the phone and call you, right? We always say, once you picked up the phone, you've lost. Or I want to be in Facebook or SMS or rich messaging. And so how, as a company, are you equipped to serve those customers and serve that customer need? And I think, introducing things like AI into the omni-channel solutions allows you to bring support to the customer, deliver the right answer faster, and converse with that customer without having to have the high cost of human capital or human resources behind that. And that's really what DeviceBits has been working on for almost the last decade. And we're excited to be here, as I said, to share the story, and excited to be part of ResultsCX. That acquisition was about a year ago, and getting our eyes under the hood of a 30,000 person call center has been pretty eye-opening.
All right, thank you for that. Yeah, and it's one of those things about trying to have a consistent and repeatable result or answer, and giving that consistent experience for folks. And a 30,000 person call center, that's very important. Especially with some of the quality control issues that you see out of call centers. So, so that's a very interesting thing. Pretty sure it was a lot of interesting times for you there, of course. So Matthew, last but not least, when inserting AI into your enterprise operations, how do you establish and maintain trust with the business?
Well, I guess depending on the organization, if it's their first time or a repeated effort to get AI into the business, I think no matter what, probably the biggest challenge for adoption, adoption really meaning that you've got a solution that's deployed, but the organization is really embracing it and letting it do its job and not intervening and undercutting it. That trust building exercise is really education as much as anything else. I think the more of those kinds of deployments we get involved in with customers, the more we see that expectation management was really the beginning of the end for the AI initiative, that it's by default, it's a solution that's meant to improve with time and exposure and experience. Regardless of the technology that you're deploying, it's a long runway to get to the envisioned ROI of a lot of executives. So I think it really comes down to a balancing act between helping the customer to understand this is what the solution does and this is what you can expect from it, but also what's your timeline to what levels of accuracy you really want and expect out of this thing to make the solution actionable, and to set some realistic expectations on how confident should you be in the solution's result before it's allowed to act, and how much of a percentage of the overall workload from an operational optimization standpoint do you want the solution to be able to take on. The closer to 100% on either of those things a customer feels like they have to be, the longer it takes and the more expensive it is. And really, arguably, nobody needs 100% ever. So I think it really, in establishing trust, it's really about walking back the expectation before really getting into the meat of the project itself.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I can tell you, the simplest form of AI right now is, chatbots, right? That's kind of the, dipping your feet in the water. And we started deploying a chatbot, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. People are going to be do it. We looked at the cost, and the company's like, oh yeah, it's like $200 for the chatbot. I was like, this is like stealing. And then, we said, well, how much would it be for you guys to build it out for us? So it was like, oh, $100,000 because of all the logic and the time to build it out and do it. And I said, maybe I can have someone do it internally. I had a guy look at it, and it was like, yeah, this is going to be almost like a full-time job just to make a simple chat bot. So I think, getting into that, kind of as you indicated, the expectations. I mean, I thought I was going to have a chat bot in 2 weeks. So, definitely expectation setting is important there. So JC, I want to go back to you real quick, because I think dovetailing on that a little bit, what about the security and trust when you're implementing AI, right? The big fear, if you're, we talk about conspiracy theory these days and all these other things, but look, everybody in the back of their minds wants to know, how are you not creating Skynet? What about the security and the trust?
Yeah, fair enough, right? I mean, the robots aren't coming yet, so I think everybody can rest assured, right? We'll get through the pandemic first, then we'll worry about the robots. But, I think it is fear, right? And I think, a lot of the fear comes down to what I think is near and dear to a lot of folks on this call, and that is, where are you at in your IT maturity, right? What data do you have to teach a model in AI, right? So we can give you the best model in the world for our chatbot, and if you don't have good conversational data to feed into that to teach that model, you're going to be really challenged, and you're probably going to be underwhelmed at the output, right? And so, I think that's a big piece of it is, are you ready as an organization? Because if you're not, then I don't think you should have a high level of trust in just, plugging in a chat bot, right? There are other approaches where you can leverage AI to prepare yourself to be ready to take that step. The other thing too, I think is, you're getting to a point now where when I started DeviceBits, chatbots were just coming out, and I watched a lot of our customers fail because it wasn't our first product, right? So we watched them fail and looked at why they failed, right? And it was, I think, what you just explained, Marcus. Well, I can buy this thing for $200. It's great. The silver bullet. And at the end, when we talked to our customers about why they failed, it was around the expectation, right? And so I think now where you're at is people have been preparing for this, right? And so they have data sets that they can use that maybe leverages anonymized data, right? We're talking a lot about healthcare, where PHI or HIPAA may drive some of those requirements. So I think companies are reaching a point where they're ready, where they can have trust because they've probably done some level of maturation over the last 5 years when this moved from hype to reality, right? And I think that helps. So I think just to kind of wrap a bow around that, I think look inward, right? Are you ready? Is your organization mature enough? Do you have the right data? Is it anonymized? Because you don't want to hand your data off to somebody randomly. I heard all about WeChat and TikTok and everything earlier, right? So more and more of these things are becoming a concern. So as you think about this, don't just think about your project today. Think about your project in 5 or 10 years and how you might be able to utilize some of that data so that you do have trust.
Right. And, Matthew, I want to go back to you really quickly. Obviously interest of this group is obviously, pitching this thing, setting expectations of the theme we've just been talking about. So when selecting AI projects, how do you qualify a project before funding it? And how's the ongoing cost of the project managed and reported to leadership?
Yeah, so, I mean, on the qualification front, I think that the cleanest answer for anybody that's evaluating this right now is do it with numbers and data. Don't let it be an emotional decision. So too many organizations that we get involved in, it's like, I think it's kind of where you might have started, where like, I want a chatbot. It's cool. It's modern looking. It's outward facing from the organization. So I want that AI solution, or I want a solution that's going to do logistics optimization, starting with the specific problem that they want to solve, rather than looking organizationally at all the processes that are in play, where there are gaps, where there's significant multivariate decision making that has to happen, or other areas where AI has a disproportionate play in solving the overall problem. That, I think, is how the qualification activity needs to begin. And not to cross promote, but I mean, there are tools out there like Celonis that deployed across an org give you a lot of that data that I'm talking about right now, that help you find an area where the impact is going to be high, but where the deployability is also high. After that, when it really comes down to funding, I mean, a lot of it, I think it can't simply be a budget play, unfortunately, at this point. We're in a hurry to get good AI solutions. A lot of them do take time, though. So it needs to be a combination of projected overall investment timeline to probable delivery, meaning not that the solution is all the way done, but that we're ready to begin using it. We can start experiencing some of our return on investment. We'll continue to optimize that over a period that follows that deployment. Being able to lay that into your overall organization timeline, those are the factors that we try to get organizations to look at and quantify and put together a matrix of, here's how I can justify this overall spend. And then after that, I mean, the piece about reporting that into senior leadership, that one's always tough, because with a lot of AI endeavors, there is spend for a while before you see a whole lot of immediate return. So I think, again, there's a piece of that just comes back to the expectation management. You saw that yourself. So it's really about just putting together a plausible timeline and a budget, tracking against that, but really being able to do some demonstration along the way. I like to, where executives will let me, I like to build a little bit of demo of progress into the monthly or quarterly reporting, just to give some kind of proof that we're going down a long road here. It's a little way off to the destination, but you are getting there, and we can show you that as we go. It's not just spend for the sake of spend. I think everybody needs to keep that in mind with respect to an AI project. It's a little different than a lot of the other IT projects that we're used to. We need to report with the same kind of flavor of expectations, but we need to treat this like its own animal.
Okay. And so, Simon, with that handoff to you, right? Now, we've talked about, right, qualifying before funding, reporting to leadership. Maybe we have funding now, right? So they're going to come back and they're going to want to see, hey, where's the ROI on this? So how do you turn these insights into actions? How do you ensure that AI gets embedded into your day-to-day operations, where it's not like, well, here's the AI project over here, right, as this thing by itself?
Right. Yeah. That's a great question. I think that's why you need to integrate kind of the discovery piece, where you find opportunities for AI, and then also embed AI into software that is embedded into everyone's day-to-day work, right? So one example that we see very often is people want to optimize on-time delivery. And what we can do is we can take all the data that sits within SAP or Oracle, and then because we look at data that is, I don't know, a year, 2 years worth of data, we can predict when an order is going to be late. So it's for the same customer, for the same materials, around this time frame. And we see a lot of times all the orders are on hold because of very easy things. Like they might be a block, there might be a credit check, like things that you can remove very easily. So what we do is we can predict an order is going to be late because it's likely going to be on a hold for a couple of days. So we can be proactive about that, send a recommendation to a business user and say, hey, please look at this order. It will very likely be on a hold. Make sure that it doesn't get on a hold in the first place. And that just integrates it where you have kind of the data discovery, why orders are going to be late, where AI can help, and you give recommendations to a business user that can then act on it. And I think that's important because that makes it very tangible for someone who has a day-to-day job and has been working without AI before and now has that kind of digital twin that helps someone to do a better job. So I think that's what I would recommend everyone to kind of help people to work with AI alongside.
All right, well, thank you all for that. Great panel. Obviously, we could go all day with this. There was, some mentions from David Bray earlier about, the AI process control, which is obviously a, new thing. It's a moving field. Obviously, we'd love to hear more in the future about how we prevent Skynet from happening. What are the controls in place, right? So thank all three of you for, your expertise. And definitely we'll check out some of the links and some of the things you guys have talked about. So Hunter, back to you.
Great job, Marcus. Thanks, guys. Excellent. Good to see you all. Appreciate your engagement. Next up, we have John Iannarelli. John's a former FBI special agent as moderator, securing the hybrid work environment. John?
Hunter, thanks for having me today. And we've got some great speakers lined up for this panel. We're going to talk about securing the hybrid environment and the realities of some of the problems that come with that. You know, since COVID has struck, we've had companies shift from now we've got in-place workers, we have at-home workers, they're using personal devices in the workplace, they're using work information that's sensitive on home computers. How are we applying safeguards? What are we doing to keep the business safe? We're going to talk about that today with our panel. So let me jump right into it. We've got Lee Bailey, Director of Information Security and Compliance for Tupperware Brands. Lee, thanks for being here today. Let me toss you the first question and take a second to explain a little bit about what you do. But with COVID and us working from home, wasn't that all going to happen anyway?
That's a great question. And keep in mind that from my background, Lee Bailey, Director of Information Security and Compliance over at Tupperware. During COVID, I switched roles. I was over at ABC Fine Wine and Spirits, and I had broader responsibilities when I came over to Tupperware, now more focused on security and global, which has been very interesting, especially from a COVID perspective. Was it a natural progression? In my opinion, yes. It was definitely a natural progression as we see more and more people want to work remotely. They don't want to be behind the castle walls. That's all changed, and we want to be consumer driven and consumer aligned, and that's where the control starts to change. Instead of being the monolithic control driven by the company, now it's more aligned with the consumer and how do we take care of the business partner, and that does drive some additional conversations around architecture and support.
Well, let me follow up with that and just briefly go into, we've got all these people working from home. We kind of knew in the security business it's going that way anyway. What have we done to prepare for that? How are we keeping the business safe?
A few of the things that I did right along the way in my prior role was went down the path of standardization as much as possible. Find those tool sets that make sense to standardize on, make sure that they're internet available and they're not pointing people back behind the castle walls. One of the worst situations is if you've got to go through and get patches, or you have to go back and get updates to AV or whatever that is, and they have to get back behind the castle walls. You probably know as well as I do that they're not VPNing, and if they don't have to because it's a slower performance, we can go through and give them more up-to-date devices. We can go through and upgrade them and mobilize them and all that good stuff, but forcing them to go back into VPN doesn't work. So making that internet available is a key win.
So if I could paraphrase, you're saying Tupperware is locking in security, yet keeping it fresh. Is that correct?
I like it.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, stand by there, Lee. I'm going to follow up with you, but I want to go to Joyce. Now, Ann is a tech exec, and she's been a CEO for brands like Polo, Ralph Lauren, Aeropostale, and most recently, Chico. He's now a board advisor and a consultant. Ann, thanks for being with us.
Hey everyone. Thanks for having us, and I'm great to be with you all.
And you've been around the block in a lot of different security environments. What are some of the ways we're going to mitigate the virtual workforce dangers seeing out there? Especially, my experience has been people that have had the transition to working from home, they're worried about getting a paycheck. They are not thinking of security. What are you doing about that?
Yeah, I think the cyber criminals really took advantage of our rapid and, in some cases, potentially unsafe deployment. I think, it's some of the basic things. The social engineering is still in the top 3 tactics. We talked about that earlier. We heard about misinformation and malicious domains and phishing. And I think some of the basics still are very, very important, right? You've got to get to a zero trust environment wherever possible. I mean, I think that's super, super important. Many companies still have to ensure that they've got multi-factor, but also, to the point that Lee made earlier, some people are still very dependent on VPN. And so how you evolve to get into a more important and a more customer-driven yet secure environment is very, very important. I think it's super important to be able to monitor and alert against abnormal and malicious activity. Third parties, in my opinion, are the way to go. They've certainly given me and my teams peace of mind. And, I think on the computer side, some of these things are pretty basic. Your antivirus, your anti-malware, DLP, I think that's super important, not just for volume, but for sensitivity. And, if you can do it, endpoint detection and response, just in case you need to be able to help with forensic analysis. And one of the things that I found interesting is a common cloud breach is a misconfiguration. So many people are really going back and looking at their configurations on the cloud. Super, super important. And one trend I want to tell you guys about that I've heard from many of my colleagues at the C-level is that privacy and security teams are being elevated and funded much more readily. And where companies were not investing in CISOs in the past, they are today. So strike while the iron's hot, guys.
It only took a worldwide pandemic for them to finally appreciate what we've been talking about for years. So I'm glad to see that's happening, and I've seen it across the board. The other thing I've seen across the board is, boy, the phishing scams are on the rise with the pandemic. It's amazing the various things, information supposedly from Johns Hopkins on the latest technology is really malware waiting to work in the company. Anything specific that you've seen that we should be aware of, what we should be doing?
You know, I think the bad actors, damn, they're creative. You know, the texting scams that I've seen are unbelievable, or even the calls to our employees, even at home from Microsoft for the emergency fix that needs to be put in right away. And a lot of the ways that I've seen that addressed is just going back to the basics and education, right? I mean, I think communicating and educating our people is super important. You know, also conducting our own attacks and matching and gauging the hacker sophistication. Because I think employees that get taken by the hack need the additional training. And I think working with our employees also to create an environment of trust is really important. We all know it takes one click, right, to cause a problem. And so the chances are pretty good that even in all of your education, no matter how well you beat the statistics, that one click could affect you. So in that case, your pen testing matters, your VPN configurations matter. I think this whole idea around the endpoint, again, getting to zero trust. If you have an endpoint on your environment, it needs to be patched. I don't care whose machine it is. And I see a lot of that happening now, and it's being embraced. It's not as seen as invasive as it was before, because people fundamentally want to be safe and they want to protect the company's assets. Also, incident management, I mean, just have to have an incident response plan. John, again, somebody mentioned cross-promoting earlier. I have to cross-promote you because you really helped me in the past make sure that, give me peace of mind and my team that we have the right incident management. And I would also say that get that in front of your boards. Get it in front of your audit committee, do the tabletops with your audit and your board. I think it helps with them understanding their role, and it's critical for gaining the additional budget you need.
Fantastic, great stuff. Thank you so much. Let me jump next to Monti Knode. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Monti in the past. He is the Director of Customer Success for Horizon 3 AI. Monti, welcome and thanks for joining us today. I'd like you to just take a minute to explain a little bit about what your company does, because it's so important in what we're seeing today. And also maybe you can tell us what are some of the things you're seeing from some of your customers and other companies about the threats they've encountering and maybe future risks.
Yeah, thanks, John, and it's great to see everybody else on here. I really like what Ann and Lee led off with here. To start, as the Director of Customer Success, I'm responsible for our customer strategy. Been a former CIO and CISO, and just retired out of the Air Force, where I was both an offensive and defensive cyberspace operations officer, and got to learn a lot about how the world operates that way at a global scale. Horizon 3 is an offensive cybersecurity company, and what we do is we apply attacker techniques to data graphing models, and then we automate and mesh them with AI to gain insights at much higher speed and accuracy than what manually can be done. So that's really what our company does. Some of the things that we're finding, and you know, it's interesting, what we're seeing from the pandemic is that the attack surface has absolutely exploded. Now that people are working from home, when somebody is conducting a Zoom call from home, you've now opened up a direct tunnel that is streaming data in that could be going across your corporate network, and somebody can jack on that. We're seeing more DNS tunneling kind of things happening as well. So that surface attack area has really exploded, and what that's meant is your security teams They don't have agents on everything. You're talking about with the pandemic, there are now thermal sensors that are being held manually, as well as being tied in as IoT explodes crazily, where we thought it was going to be around 20 to 30 billion. Now with the pandemic, you're talking about 3x up higher than that now, that what IoT is going to be looking at here. So we're seeing that the scale of the security potential for breaching and having these backdoor ways is just absolutely unprecedented. And it's something that it's very hard for a team, let alone a CISO, to get on top of, because what they don't want to do is be a naysayer to the company that's trying to both protect their employees' health as well as make sure that they are fast. You heard the discussion from Ann there about how we were deploying so fast and speed kills. I know that HMG has held different talks on this, but the bottom line is now we're looking back at some of those misconfigurations. And if I was going to tell you something, John, of the top 10 ways that people are being exploited, I mean, the Verizon report, CrowdStrike, we're getting ready to release ours. 80% are through security credentials that are being accessed. I mean, when I can look like John Iannarelli and access what John accesses, then there are no EDR that is going to detect me. And that endpoint detection response becomes very null and void. And so we are seeing that at a massive, massive scale. We do that from our company, where we can even go on LinkedIn and do password spraying, credential stuffing, and get in within a matter of minutes to somebody's corporate network. It's pretty scary, but that's partly what we're also trying to help. Like I said, I was former Air Force. I work with a lot of former military as well as commercial industry people who are kind of fed up with the way some of the security tools have been very capabilities poor, tools rich, but capabilities poor. And we want to do something about that. So that's our mission, and that's what we're seeing, John.
Well, thanks, Monty. And also, likewise, thank you for your service as a government employee. I always tell people we had the advantage. We only worked half a day, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, but let me follow up with, because you are Air Force and that's your background, you're familiar, of course, with the term combat ready. For you guys, that means being ready and capable and being combat effective, excuse me.
You bet.
What do you have to do today to be combat effective to take on this battle we're facing?
So I think that's an individual question that each C-level person needs to ask and answer themselves honestly. Are we combat effective? And this is not a spectrum question. This is a very binary answer. This is something that when I was with the special ops teams, it was very much a yes or no. You are either combat effective or not. And we say combat, we put combat in front of it. You can put any kind of a different moniker in front of that, but understanding what effective means as a CIO or CISO means that you are speaking the same language that your board and your CEO are speaking, that you're putting revenue ahead of that you got to keep the company in business, and that you're making your employees a priority. Those are some of the things that I can tell you when the pandemic hit, and we were conducting offensive operations from within very special compartmented facilities, and now all of a sudden those things are locked up. We had to reevaluate how we could be combat effective and doing strategy, planning, everything else. And that takes a different mindset. And I'm sure with Ann, Lee, and Dave, every one of us has our own metrics and goals and things that we're looking at, as well as things that are coming down. The one thing I would say for the CISOs, we're seeing a couple different kind of CISOs, and the combat effective ones are not the ones who view security as a compliance effort, as just some checkbox that I got to go through. They're also not the ones that ostrich themselves into the sand and say, you know what, I got too many alerts right now. I can't handle. If you guys show me more of what's wrong, I don't want to see that. The ones that are really combat effective are embracing the situation that they're in, and they are figuring out new and innovative ways to be welcoming to diverse opinions and ideas on how do we get out in front of this and make our company and our employees much more effective so that our customers are thriving in our environment.
Wow, great stuff. Thank you so much, Monty. I want to throw it over to Dave Summitt. He's the CISO for Moffitt Cancer Centers. Dave, I started off by introducing this meeting, this panel, by saying, hey, we've got information that's sensitive that is now not only going home, but going home to personal. You guys are in a very sensitive area, sensitive information. What are you doing to protect that?
John, thanks for having me here today and talk about this. It's a great discussion. Monti's his exit speech right there was just spot on. I hope I can add something to that one because it's a challenge. I mean, this COVID has been a challenge. And John, you mentioned at the beginning of this about remote workforce, and weren't we already headed there? Yeah, we are already headed there. COVID just kind of sped things up. And unfortunately, when you speed things up, a lot of things get overlooked. And it caused us to reevaluate how we're going to be doing our remote workforce, who actually is remote and should be remote. I mean, in healthcare, obviously, you can't have everybody remote. I mean, you still have caregivers that are going to have to be working with patients here at the facility. So there's kind of a break there. You have a certain population in healthcare that can work remote, and the business people can work remote, and then you have providers that can't. So what do you do to help propagate a remote workforce? And in our case, we were doing taking advantage of latest technology and doing patient virtual visits to where the patients didn't have to leave their home. They could actually do it online and meet with our providers right online. And in early days of COVID, we saw a 5,000% increase in our visitations from our visitors to our providers. So it was huge, and it was impacting. Now, what we started learning early on was that users get really creative. You know, we talk about our bad actors out there getting creative with ways of infiltration and stealing data. Our users get equally creative in getting around things that you have put in place for their protection and for the organization's protection. So one of the things that we found out early on was we had to dust off our policies. Some of the policies that we had written just absolutely would not cover remote workforce. So we had to start looking at how the policy is going to be kind of changing and how to properly secure these remotes. The other things that we were finding is that in our normal operations of remote, we had very specific security put into place where our users just couldn't do certain things like logging into our network and then printing it home. We didn't allow that at all. But then we found case scenarios where, you know, business cases where if we were going to have certain business people working at home, it was almost a must for them to do some certain printout. As much as I don't like printouts, being a CISO and being paranoid about data loss, I mean, that's a way to lose it. But you look at this and you kind of see this and say, look, we've got to come up with different ways of doing things because it is changing and it's fast changing. So basically, real quick into what we've done here, Ann and Lee's already kind of brought out several items here that DLP is extremely important in this environment. You have to know what's coming in your environment and you have to know what's leaving. And that means SSL inspection. That means looking at everything that's coming in and out of your network. And that's kind of what we're doing. I've redefined, I'm one of those fortunate CISOs this year that had the luxury of doubling the size of my team. Now, that sounds like a lot. I've gone from 7 to 15 of us now. Not a large team, but it's getting our job done. But what I ended up doing was splitting those 15 people out into 2 different teams. One does regular cyber operations in penetration testing and vulnerability scanning and you know, all the routine admin work you do in cyber. The other side of the house, I brought in some experts that we are now doing, we're actually doing advanced penetration testing, and I call it our threat analysis center. We're going on the offensive and we're doing threat hunting inside the environment. We're looking for things that are not right in the environment, because I believe that for us to properly secure a healthcare setting, you've got to know more than just what's going on. You have to look at every single thing that's going on, as big as it is, because it's going to be that one little event that's going to catch you if you're not watching and you're not paying attention. So that's kind of what we're doing with half of our team now, and we're going to have that fully stood up here as of January 1st. I've got some great people, the new hires that have really made a big difference already and found some things that we didn't even think about. So when I got these new people in, we all started putting our heads together and we're trying to think outside the box. And we do have an AI system in-house too that is starting to look at user behavior analytics. I think that's just another area to help with that. So that's kind of what we're going down. That's the route we're going down.
Fantastic, Dave. Great contributions. Panel, great job, everyone. Just to wrap this up and throw it back to Hunter, I think Dave said something. He talked about policies. Most of us know our policies. We do have to dust them off in the world of COVID, but do the employees know the policies? Let's make sure that everybody's on the same sheet of music so that we can keep the company safe. Thank you, everyone. Hunter, take it away.
John, great job. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Great seeing you all. Thanks, Ann, Monty, Dave. Good job. Lee. Next up, we have tackling the risk on a go forward basis. First up, Ann Dozier. Ann's the Senior Vice President and CIO at Glazer's Wine and Spirits. Ann, great to have you on the summit.
Thank you. Great to be here.
You know, Ann, when you think about strategically the vision and the agenda that you're driving, right, for your company, facilitating, enabling, and leading digital transformation, digital innovation, and you think about balancing that with risk in this environment, in this pandemic, what does that look like? How does that play out?
Well, you know, I think it's really interesting because we've been able to get the broader organization to really understand risk. And the first part of dealing with risk is knowing it's there. And digital is now not just about selling, but it's also about digitizing the employee experience. And as we just heard, there's a lot of things that companies are thinking about as associated with how do we make our employees successful when many of them are working remotely. So what we've done as a company is we've put together what we call a crisis management team. And it's a cross-functional group that is dealing with the changing landscape that we're working in today, whether it be our customers, the regulations in the states we work in, or our changing priorities. We're very focused on working together to make sure that we're thinking through cross-functionally how we manage risk as we move quickly to be able to meet the changing needs of the business. It's been a really great experience to be part of that team. And we've been able to execute things in days that used to take us months to execute. We've also enacted our Cyber Council, and I heard a lot of people talking about the growing importance of cyber as part of the pandemic. And we've got our CEO and our executive leadership that are actively engaged as part of our cyber efforts. And we're really focusing on making cyber the responsibility of everybody in the company, not just an IT initiative for us to protect the organization. So it's been a great experience as the CIO to be able to further connect some of the things that we deal with behind the scenes with the day-to-day business operations to be able to broaden the expertise of the organization so that we can make sure that we're tackling problems together.
Hey, thanks for that, Ann. Great answers there. Really interesting insights. When you think about building relationships with the C-suite, the board, and line of business, what are some of your tips that you use to build trust and rapport?
It's all about communication, and it's all about sharing the facts. We never really spent a lot of time talking about the cyber opportunities because we handle those behind the scenes. And obviously we don't want to share what's going on because we don't want to share how we're preventing them. So just being able to sit down with the executive team and educate them on all the things that are going on that they don't see that we're combating every day really helped us to be able to create that tighter connection with our leadership group to be able to deal with some of the challenges. And it's not just about cyber, it's also about how do we actually improve our systems and make changes to our systems quickly to be able to deal with the changing customer landscape. You know, we've seen our on-premise business go from everybody open and running as normal to almost non-existent in a lot of locations. We've also as a essential business during COVID, we've gone into a model of trying to operate in an environment where there's lots of guidelines that we have to follow in order to keep our employees safe and our customers safe. So we want to make sure that we're working together to effectively share facts and build relationships to make sure that we're able to meet the changing business needs on a daily basis.
Sound thinking, sound advice, and great practices. Thanks, Ann. I'll circle back to you here in just a minute. Hey, next up we have Dean Lane. Dean's the Senior Vice President, Cyber Intelligence Initiative at the Institute of World Politics. Dean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Hunter. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. Hey, Dean, when you think about the next black swan event, I love that idea, and predicting the next big risk out there, how do you get prepared?
Okay, so just as a side note, this black swan event occurred in Western Australia by a Dutch explorer named Wilhelm Vlaminck in the 17th century. At the time, all the Europeans had believed that all swans were white. And so the discovery of a black swan changed everything. 9/11 was a black swan event. COVID, as you presented, has been a black swan event. So to answer your question, when we look at these black swan events that may be coming, we can't control the present. Okay, there's no way to control the present, but we can control the future. If we think about, what can we do, what can be done? So cybercrime, as you might imagine, would increase during the COVID pandemic. And the risk is greater because we're more highly digitized. Everybody is more highly digitized. So in order to handle these risks, we have to embrace the future. We have to let go of some of the attachments that we have now and some of the outdated expectations. We have to focus on what are the strengths of the organization, what's the purpose, what's the passion, and we have to use the opportunities to identify and use your own strengths. And that could be internally, it could be partnering with other organizations, it could be bringing in other people, but it's letting go of what has been and looking at and trying to determine what's going to happen and how do I prepare for it.
Is that an offensive strategy, and what does winning look like in that kind of context, team?
Okay, so the Institute of World Politics is a graduate school for national security and international relations. And I was brought in, I'm a 4-time CIO. I was brought in to develop the cyber intelligence curriculum. So that's like the next step in cybersecurity. What it does is it takes the technology and marries it to statecraft. So statecraft are things like counterintelligence, things like espionage. It deals with internal threat. It deals with artificial intelligence. So it's the marriage of those things. And what we do is we teach that to people so that they can go back to their organizations, use it. So yes, there are some things that we call active measures that you would take in order to protect yourself.
Great.
And it's understanding who's attacked. If you're General Motors and I'm Coca-Cola, do I really worry about you trying to steal my Coca-Cola formula? Probably not. On the other hand, if you're Schweppes or Pepsi, I better be aware of what you're doing and who you are.
Interesting.
That
Thanks
kind
so
of
much,
thing.
Dean. Great examples and insights. Next up, we have Arun DeSouza. Arun's the CISO and Chief Privacy Officer at Nexteer Automotive Corporation. Boy, that's been quite a ride you've been on. Excuse the pun there, right? Down and then now up. Everyone wants to be in their own car. They don't want to be in a bus or plane. They want their own cars. So people have multiple cars, right, Arun?
Right, that's true. But
Right?
they're sitting on the driveway.
Sitting in the driveway, but it's a boom for you, I think. So anyways, hey, what security risks do you see on the horizon? How could they impact the enterprise?
The winds of change are blowing to the world of work today. Macro trends like the fourth industrial revolution and distributed work require that companies enact and accelerate digital transformation. Therefore, technologies such as AI, blockchain, cloud computing, Internet of Things, robotic process automation, etc., are helping foster innovation and competitive advantage. Now, given this risk universe, the following security challenges will continue to be critical, in my opinion: phishing, ransomware, Internet of Things, supply chain, and third-party risk, and cloud security. Ultimately, if not managed properly, these risks are not managed properly, they can lead to data breaches, production downtime, and so on, which may result in loss of revenue, impaired customer trust, reputational loss, etc. Therefore, it's important to monitor these risks and deploy proactive control strategies. So what it actually means, in my opinion, is that the fields of security, privacy, and enterprise risk are converging. Thus, identity will become the cornerstone for secure delivery of digital applications and services. In my opinion, zero trust and software-defined perimeter can help strengthen identity to minimize business risk by anytime, anywhere authorized access. So when you take all these different puzzle pieces together, what does it all mean? Well, the bottom line is that the age of the CISO as a business leader and change agent has arrived to stay. CISOs should now be focused also on risk management and transformation, and leveraging a plethora of skills such as envisioning and storytelling, relationship management and collaboration, program management, negotiation and vendor management, and last but not the least, especially in times of great challenge like this, strategic cost optimization.
Love it. It's your little 7-point checklist right there, Arun.
Yeah, more or less.
Love it. Love it. Stay with us. I'll circle back here in just a minute. Quintin McGrath is the Senior Managing Director of Technology Management Enablement at Deloitte. Hey, Quintin, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. Good to be here.
You're a bit of an expert and thought leader around, truly global thought leader around managing 5 generations in a global organization. When you think of all the uncertainty around us impacting us and basically team morale, public sentiment, people sentiment, how do you keep people up and dialed in?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Hunter. And the work I do at Deloitte it's an internal organization that I'm part of. So it's the global IT organization. And so people around the world, and so this whole focus of multi-generations, different cultures, how do you actually operate it? There are just so many pressures, and you've got these fears that are both leadership fears of, hey, am I going to lose my people, and how am I going to get the right people to do the type of work I'm expected to do? And then you've got the employee's fear of, am I going to keep my job? Am I going to lose my job? How am I going to actually survive in this space? And then we've got this whole disconnect. I live in a 2-dimensional world, and I see people in 2 dimensions not being able to interact well. And so that whole focus of how do we make sure we drive the organization forward, and as leaders be really effective. And the kind of things that I'm certainly picking up around the world is this whole focus on, number one, we've got to be inspirational leaders, for sure. We have to inspire our people, and that's often done by purpose, going beyond just the day-to-day. So what are we doing and why are we doing it? And so the whole focus on purpose and how do we lead with purpose, then focusing on how do we create a sense of belonging. So even though people live in this 2-dimensional world and we don't see each other face to face and so on, the focus is how do we create that sense of belonging, that I still am belonging to an organization, a worldwide organization like Deloitte and like many of the others we're talking about here. And then how can I make sure I'm making a contribution to not just the organization, but my community, the people, and how do we actually make a difference? And then focus on how do we build our people, building well-being, think about our people holistically rather than just as individuals. That to me just seems to be a lot of the secrets of how do we keep the organization going and inspired and organized well.
You know, Quintin, you no doubt Deloitte's one of the top consulting groups in the world, and perhaps probably one of the top thought leadership kind of thoughtfulness in terms of how you inspire and engage your people. In our own team meeting just today, HMG, I said I got to be better with my vision and the mission, and then I would want everyone else to develop their own vision and mission for themselves as a capstone for their 2021 goals. You probably go through something similar.
Absolutely. And the thing that we've really been driving, and Puneet Renjan, our global CEO, does it so well. He focuses on what's the core, and he's looking for a purpose-driven organization. So everyone will say, you ask anyone Deloitte, what's your purpose? And it's making an impact that matters. And making an impact that matters not just to our clients, our internal people, but to the community. And then from there, once you've got that basic value, that purpose, then things flow from that. So you get your value systems that flow from that, and attitudes and the way people behave, and then the way we operate. Where it's all focused on making an impact that matters, that then drives our thinking and drives how we think year on year.
It really comes down to really world-class leadership from the top, from the center, and from the bottom, really creating that leadership culture, right?
Absolutely does. And the key thing, and it goes back to the comment I made earlier, the whole inspirational leadership is so important nowadays. I've got to meet my people in this strange world as an inspiring leader. And so when they're down and when I see in their eyes that they're battling, I've got to be the person who's saying, hey, but there's a silver lining. Look what we can do. Look how we've achieved things. And that, to me, the whole leadership and strength of leadership now is just so critical.
Well, this is a time of innovation. And if the more inspirational and excited you are, the more you can get out your people focused and directed. Over to Ann. Hey, Ann, what's your leadership style in keeping your folks engaged in this distributed work from anywhere environment?
Well, I love Quintin's comments. I think they're right on, and I completely agree. We have to make sure that we're effectively communicating to our team, that we're clearly setting objectives, that we have a clear vision, and that everybody understands what we need to deliver. We have to leverage the processes that we put in place to make sure that we can all work together effectively in this remote environment. And most importantly, as Quintin said, we have to make sure that we recognize the cues of when people need our time and our focus, because we're all not together and we're not able to effectively connect in person. And we've got to make sure that we create those connections based on what our employees need in order to continue to be successful in this environment.
Excellent, Ann. Thanks. Really appreciate the thoughtful comments. Hey, Dean, we just got a couple minutes. Over to you. When you think of culture versus strategy, what are your thoughts there?
Well, you can come up with the best strategy in the entire world, but I'll just say culture eats strategy for lunch. Okay, you have to be within the culture. Just a quick example: when I got to the Institute of World Politics, it was completely face-to-face classrooms, no distance learning at all. Today we are 100% distance learning. Now, their mindset when I got there was, hey, we've got to have that personal interaction. We've got to have the contact, et cetera, et cetera. It took 3.5 years to get them to the point where they recognized that, distance learning was the way to go. So to answer the question, you have to, when I first walked in, I said, gee, we need to be distance learning. Everybody said, no, we're not doing that. So I had to go one by one to each person, using interpersonal skills, building humane relationships, and making sure that whatever we came up with, they were part of it. What they needed was part of the plan. And when I walked out the door from that individual, it was their idea.
Love it. Great.
So that's pretty much how you have to do it.
Love it. Great job there, Dean. Hey, Arun, same thought. Your leadership style in this pandemic?
Collaboration and communication, and just fostering business partnership, and using every opportunity you can to engage with people, because it's much harder. You can't have a coffee together, you can't go to lunch together, but what you can do is nurture each important relationship at a time, and also with your team. I think that's always been me, and I continue to do that. It's pretty much it.
Love it. Great to see you, Arun. Take care. Be good. Be well. And Quintin, final word.
Yeah. Now, I just think in this particular space, there's just so many opportunities. And the more we realize, and I love, Hunter, what you often say, is this is the time from a CIO, from an IT perspective, that we just never had before. Now's the time to be bold, to take it with two hands and actually run with what we've got.
Right. Love it. Thanks, Quintin. Hey, what a great summit. Folks, I'm sorry that the panel's cut a little short, but we'll make it up next time, I promise. And great to see you, Dean. Great job, Arun and Quintin. Awesome. Great session, folks, overall. Big shout out to the Southern Florida Sim Chapter, Tampa Bay and Orlando. Great job in partnering with us. Good to see Mark Taylor as well. Central Florida Sim. And a shout out to Ring Central, Rubric, and Salonis. Please, when they reach out to you, take a meeting to support the HMG platform and our organization. I want to welcome August Policio to the stage here. August, you there?
Hey,
We're going to recognize a couple of executives in the HMG Top Technology Executives That Matter program. It's a regional program we've been running for now some 12 years. It's going to roll into a global program that will launch in March of 2021. August, you're up.
Hey, Hunter, thanks for having me on the program. And thanks for everyone for staying right till the end so we can help recognize the global technology executives that matter. We have one recipient today, one really stellar rock star in the Tampa Bay area and a really inspiring IT leader, Marcus Session. Marcus Session is the VP of IT at Tampa International Airport and the president of Tampa Bay Sim. Hey, Marcus, thanks for joining us back here on the main stage. How are you?
Hey, August, how you doing?
Great job today moderating your panel. It was really excellent.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you, Hunter and HMG for this award. And thanks to whoever nominated me. I don't know who it was, but apparently I'm doing something right. I haven't made everyone upset.
Well, it was me. It was me, Marcus. You blow me away from day one when I met you. You got the right storytelling and mindset in our industry, and we need to amplify your voice and your persona out there because I think you're doing a lot of really some excellent work.
Well, thanks for that, Hunter. And a lot of what you said in that last session, I think is very pertinent information for a lot of leaders. Vision, mission are things that we often, we forget about. We kind of set it maybe in a strategic plan somewhere, and we don't go back to it till maybe we're reviewing it 3 or 4 years later. And we're like, oh, wait a minute, we haven't looked at this. It needs to be ingrained in your organization, the culture and how you move things forward. And I thought that last session exuded that. And we're not perfect as leaders, right? We all have our flaws, we all have our things, and I think one of the important things is in this time is we have to let our leaders lead, and we have to provide them with the tools and the support to be able to do things. We can't do everything, especially now. Before, if you were a micromanager, you could go around the office and mess with people. In this pandemic and this remote environment, you can't do that right now. So I think leadership skills are being tested, and I think people are getting better learning about themselves.
Excellent. August, do you have a few comments that we've outlined?
Sure. Yeah, Marcus, just thank you for being a great friend to HMG and an integral player and founding our relationship with Tampa Bay Sim, helping to form our community in Florida. We just launched our inaugural summit in Florida earlier this year in 2020. Many of you were there in person with us. So a little bit about Marcus. He's found himself within two kind of key passions in his IT career that I've noticed: higher education and aviation. His stepping stone as senior network engineer for the University of South Florida taught us something really important about Marcus. He leads with education. He fosters growth. He fosters learning. He grew that mindset with his 12-year career at the university, but has never stopped educating his teams and his colleagues at Tampa Bay International Airport, with the Hillsborough County Aviation Authority, and with Sim Tampa Bay. Marcus said he leads his teams how I'd want my kids to lead. He makes himself available to listen, teach, work through any problems his team may face. I could continue talking about his unique leadership attributes for hours, but I want to hand it back to Hunter just to talk a little bit more about the relationship we've developed with Marcus. And congratulations.
Yeah, really, thanks, August. It's really been quite magical. And I would say this, from the first time I heard Marcus speak on a call and when we met in person, he really does deliver. One of the best visionary storytellers I've seen in our industry ever, full stop. So congratulations, Marcus. You joined an elite group of tech leaders, some 200 to 300 tech leaders worldwide now that have received this kind of recognition of being a thought leader on innovation, transformation, team building, building culture, giving back to the industry, giving back to the HMG network, and giving back to Sim.
Thank you for that, Hunter. I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate the And, just thanks for the opportunity to promote SIM and the great IT leaders in Tampa Bay. It's a growing IT community, obviously, and definitely want to thank my team. Some of them I know are on this call. I want to thank them because, it wouldn't be possible for me to be able to do the things at the airport that we've been able to do. America's favorite airport, by the way. Please fly out of us. And also the other thing is, the things that they do allow me to have time to contribute to SIM and HMG and try to build a robust IT community in the state of Florida. I just envision that Florida is going to continue to grow as an IT leader. And, we want to take the mantle from California at some point. It's going to be difficult to do, but I think we have the talent and we have the leaders here to do it.
Great job. Hey, folks, amazing summit. Looking forward to our new summits next year in 2021, both digital and in person. Great job by everyone, our keynote speakers, panelists, and old and new friends. Be safe over the holidays, right? And enjoy. It's right around the corner. 4 weeks away. Take care and be safe. Thanks.